Why do I hold this?
My parents have been telling me the same crazy story ever since I was a kid. So back in 1987, my parents were on vacation together in the British Virgin Islands. It's a little cluster of islands just off the eastern coast of Puerto Rico. Excuse my pronunciation, I am Canadian.
My name is Joe!
The point is, if you were to look at these islands on the map, you would see how they really are just plunked down in the middle of the ocean, just vast stretches of open ocean around them. So my parents were only newly married when they went on this vacation. My mom was working as a corporate lawyer and my dad was in real estate. I know I'm biased. They're my parents, I'm their kid, but I can't stress enough, my parents are very, very normal people. When people use the term normie, they are talking about my parents. They have no history of drugs. They were never really partiers. They're not following conspiracy theories. There's no history of brain tumors, mental illness, or anything like that. They're just very run-of-the-mill, average type, boomer generation people. Another thing that I will add is that they have been telling the same story the same way my entire life. To every single person that they tell it to, the story is the same. The details never change, the story never changes. So I'm going to tell you about the events that occurred to my parents in 1987 on their vacation in the British Virgin Islands. It was April, and my parents were staying at a resort called Bearis Creek, which is on the Virgin Gorda Island of the British Virgin Islands. Side note, I do not think that resort exists as it was anymore. I found a Facebook post that basically was saying that the resort had to close up shop for a variety of business reasons. So whatever is there now, I do not think it's the same layout as it was. So it was between 9:30. They had finished up dinner and, they're young in love. They decide to go for a nice romantic stroll around the pool deck. And so they're sitting there looking out at the ocean. And again, vast open ocean. No other islands, no other cities, nothing is in front of them except for ocean. And all of a sudden they start to see what looks like the end of a sunset. But it's 9:30 p.m. The sun is already set. As they're looking at it, it sort of elevates and then it starts to come towards them. They described it as an oval shape with orange windows above it. It appeared to sort of go above the horizon, and then here's the key detail. It rapidly took off. No acceleration, just point A to point B instantaneously. No thrust, no exhaust, no acceleration, just instant. It's just beyond the capability of the technology that we would have had in 1987 and even today. Another key detail that they always talk about is that there was no sound. They heard not one sound during this entire event, just the waves crashing on the beach as if nothing was happening. After this event was over, they immediately walked back to their room and they wrote down everything that they had just experienced in a letter, 2 letters actually, one that they sent to the US government and the other they have kept to this day. My mom describes it as one of the scariest moments of her life, especially when they were walking back to their room. She was just holding on to my dad tight. She kept thinking that she was seeing like little aliens or monsters popping out from each tree and bush. Every time I think about this story, I just don't know what I would do in that situation. Nothing like that has ever happened to me. I don't even have a good ghost story to contribute. It just seems so strange that this happened to my parents, 2 of the most straight-laced, normal people on this planet. If I think too hard about this, I start to disassociate because it's just so strange. And the fact that I have been hearing this story my entire life and it's just always seemed so normal. Hey, have you heard my parents' story about the alien that they saw? And now that I'm the age that they actually were when that happened to them, I'm experiencing the world suddenly being like, oh yeah, aliens, UAPs, no big deal. It's just crazy to think about that it's going to be in their lifetime and my lifetime that we could maybe sort of finally have some sort of sensible scientific discourse around all this. It's important for me to mention that I have always believed my parents. I never once thought that they were crazy or delusional. And maybe that's just a symptom of growing up with this story. How you grow up with certain expressions or routines or culture just becomes a normal part of your existence. I do recognize that there are a lot of hoaxes around sightings, UFOs, aliens, and all that, but I don't think that all of them are hoaxes. I think that there's just some things that the world cannot explain right now. The famous Tic Tac video that the pilot saw that was actually recently part of a congressional hearing, that was 20 years ago. In 2017, the New York Times published the first legit investigative report on a US government secret program about unexplained phenomenon, UAP type sightings and all that. My parents, they're in their late 70s now. It's been pretty interesting to see the reaction to all this that's coming out about UAPs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them. We watched a documentary over the holidays called The Age of Disclosure, which is about the whistleblowers and former military or government officials that are sort of coming forth and pressing for more disclosure and more honest conversations about these sightings and, just talking about what they are, mainly to sort of destigmatize the conversation. I think there's still a tendency for people to see anyone who talks about UFOs as maybe not so much crazy anymore, but maybe as someone who likes to stir up controversy for the sake of controversy. A lot of the criticisms that I was hearing about when all this UAP stuff first started coming up early 2020s were that this was sort of political theater, or it was a tactic that politicians can use to be like, look here, look here, look here, while they're doing something over here, over here, over here. It's a valid criticism, and I definitely recognize that that happens. That being said, though, I still don't think it's a giant hoax or lie for the sole purpose of distraction. I think that there's still some truth out there. Perhaps the way that people are going about it is meant to be politically distracting for sure. But, I grew up with this story from my parents, and like I said, they've told it the same way every single time, and they've never felt affected by people thinking that they might be crazy or anything like that. They know what they saw, they know what they experienced, and that's good enough for them. They are excited to have more information be coming out. It can provide a sense of closure, maybe not so much what they saw, but the fact that they did see something and other people have seen it, and it is sort of a recorded event in our historic timeline. I would be okay with that kind of dialogue where the highest officials in the world come out and they say, look, we don't know what these are, but we have a record of them going back decades that we can't explain. I think that that would be an okay starting point, at least. And then the point of all this would be to destigmatize the conversation so that scientists can be taken more seriously when they want to investigate what these things are and where they might be coming from. Obviously, it would be pretty cool if a bunch of world leaders came out and said, yes, aliens are real. Aliens exist. We've met aliens. They live among us. Failing that, just a more honest discussion about unexplained aerial phenomenon would be a good starting point for humanity, I think. Because certainly growing up, it was either a sci-fi concept or it was people who were very stigmatized or perhaps just legitimately not well people talking about this kind of thing. That's a huge change for this to be talked about more in the mainstream, mainstream news or talk shows or mainstream podcasts, that sort of thing. So that's the crazy story that my parents have been telling me since I was a kid. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. I'd love to know what you think in the comments down below. Otherwise, thank you for watching and have a good day.